I'm going to quickly present about me. I am Dr. Marcia Christina Ferreira. I am a senior lecturer in marketing at Brunel Business School. Before come back to academia, I was a marketing executive. I used to work in Brazil, in multinationals that covers Brazil and other cities in Latin America. Okay, I think I can mute everyone. Mute everyone. Yes. So, um, and then I moved. So I had a lot of experience in marketing, particularly graphic design and marketing communications. So, and then I became an academic, and of course, the natural move was to continue study branding and marketing communications. So today it's when Anu asked me about joining the programming, I thought it would be a great idea because I was keen to have contact with the industry again. So it's just truly hope that I can actually, with these moving forward sessions, right? It's a sessions that will bring you some new insights of what you learn over, new insights about over what you learn in terms of brains, brain values, and brain missions. So I really hope that I can contribute with my expertise, my academic expertise, and also my business experience to this. So I'm going to start showing the presentation now. So I guess you can all see my slides, right? Perfect. I always check because sometimes we do some mistake.
It's of course nice if they can be showed in the slide mode, but I mean it works like this.
They are in the slide mode. No, no. Let's put in the slide mode. See, mistake. Let's stop sharing and let's do it again. PowerPoint, share the PowerPoint. It should be in the slide mode. Can you see in the slide mode now?
Yes, now it's much better. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. Welcome, guys. Please do ask any questions anytime you see fit. And of course, let me know if I'm making any mistake. So this is, as I said, it's a moving forward sessions, right? In doing so, right, it will expand your knowledge over missions, purpose, and brands. I will talk about building brand culture. So it is a perspective, it is a different perspective. When I start my academic career, it was a new perspective. Now it's a well-established perspective. And valuing cultural aspects of consumption and consumers' interaction with the brand, it's extremely important. And it brings a new nuance that can actually help your brands and your company to move forward, right? To be more successful, to make a better profit. So why culture is important? Culture has a profound influence on the attitudes, beliefs, and values that underpins people's behavior, not only individually, but collectively, right? Because we all interact with the culture and we do it is collectively. The COVID-19 situation is this really good example that we actually, for a specific period of time, we are actually not being able to enjoy all the cultural settings, all the cultural process that we love it so much, right? So we participate in many different kinds of culture. Often our different kinds of cultures intersect. So we have national culture, music, literature cultures, lifestyle culture. For young people, lifestyle culture, it's everything, right? That's the bread and butter. They live to fulfill all sorts of uh, interactions and desires and understanding about lifestyle cultures, of course, linked to brands, usually luxury brands. So for this reason, brands can too have a powerful influence on people because brains are what we call meaning-rich tools, right? That we use to express our individual sense of self, our individuality, but also our collective identity. Because people not only have their own sense of self, the sense of self, according to symbolic interactionism theory, is influenced by the perception of the others. So, and not what the others only perceived, but what someone's perceived, what the others perceived. So in any case, it's never individual aspect. A cultural aspect of brand is always collective, never individual. So let's start, right, talking about our key concept today. Our key concept is brand culture. In previous class, you guys studied different theories and models of brands. So these theories and models, they saw brand as a cognitive entity. By cognitive, I mean some sort of a meaningful entity that you understand, right, by processing the values, the symbols, and all the meaningful aspects about the brand inside your mind. And by cognitive, I mean also that is an individual understanding and perception of this brand. So our perspective today, as I said before, will broaden this perspective, and it works in conjunction with what you have learned. It's not something that will actually cancel, of course not. It's actually adds to your learning, to what you have done for your brand and for your company so far, right? So cultural brands, this really helps with brand equity, brand identity prism, and all other models you learn. Oh, the brand cultural perspective recognizes the importance of the brand in society, and because of it, it explores the process that affects the brands, such as historical context, ethical concerns, and cultural conventions. So we are seeing a brand in a different light now. In doing so, the brand cultural perspective recognizes that brains actually function, actually works in both ways. The brains can be the cultural meaningful artifact, represents its own system, all the values we have around them. But brains also bear the meanings from uh, overall society, right? Reflecting our societal culture, our ideology, our codes. I assume that you guys are very intrigued about my blue-orange image, right? In this image, the blue ink represents cultural processes where that we have in society. As I said, remember the cultural processes are historical context, ethical concerns, and cultural conventions. So this blue ink also covers our orange, right? And the orange represents our brands. So as this cultural process covers our orange, our brand, it infuses our brand with some cultural blue codes. And brands need to draw from cultural process, so, right? Because they need to be meaningful, right? They need to have some significance in society. So, like it or not, some cultural blue codes will become part of our brand meaningful systems. So they cannot be disassociated. Even if a company actually have not attached this meaning to the brand, it doesn't mean, because consumers are completely capable of doing this by themselves. So we could actually uh, peel the orange screen and extract this blue ink, right? Extract these codes, these cultural codes. But if you do this, we actually risk striping the brand, striping from the brand its unique image, right? Our brand is more interesting because there is a blue ink covering the just a simple orange, right? So if we just peel it, right, we will lose, right, its essence. What is it special? It's our useful meanings, right? And of course, this affects the values of the brand, and this affects probably consumer perception about your brand. So the proposal for this class is that we actually start looking at brand differently, right? That we start to pay attention in the multiple sources of cultural meanings that exist and the dynamics, right, that these cultural meanings promote around our brands. So the official definition of the idea of brand culture is brand culture refers to the cultural codes from images, myths, artworks, music, theaters, and etc. that influence the brand meanings and values in the marketplace. So from this point, right, we can actually understand that brains it's something that you're never gonna lose its blue ink, no matter what we do, right? But also we can actually value, right, work with this blue ink to make our brand more special, interesting under the eyes of our consumers and of course under the eyes of our employee, right? Because that's what we're going to talk about, right? We are going to talk about building brand cultures. To build a brand culture, right, we need to work in two fronts. We need to work with the synergy between the organization and the brand culture that is from society, right? And we also need to work with the co-created culture that our consumers and sometimes our stakeholders help us to see it exists. Why I'm talking about other stakeholders here? Unless we are talking something in relation to uh, sustainability, we usually don't think about other stakeholders than our consumers. But we do have, any brand has other stakeholders. There are people that actually that don't consume your brand, but they do, right? They can identify and interpret your brand culture, and sometimes they can even influence, right, the whole society by advocating against your brand culture. This is also happens, for example, in cases of consumption resistance, where consumers reject a particular brand, such as Starbucks, because Starbucks represents a particular value they don't comply with. So, the brand culture concept occupies the theoretical space between strategic conceptualizations of brand identity and consumers' interpretation of brand image. So it's basically a dream come true, right? We no longer have just two sides. We have an integrated side that is able to actually help us to understand how everything works well together. Because as I said, as we see, this is our blue-orange, we cannot peel off the culture around our brains. So let's embrace it. First, let's do the first building block, the synergy between organization and brand culture, and then we do the other one. Organization and brand culture synergy. Organization culture is much more organic than a strategic vision. Again, guys, the strategic vision is extremely important, but the organizational culture is about allowing or enable your employee to understand your vision, right? So, organization culture is a way that the brand is a way to convey the brand ethos, a corporate brand approach niche, right? Because it emphasizes not only the internal values and meanings, but it also emphasizes the consumer experience with overall brand cultural values, meanings the values that are external, the blue ink. So organizational culture then, right, will help you guys to actually transform your visual from a plank that you stick in the wall to something that is enacted by your employee. If your brand, for example, has as one of the core values youth, you want that your employees are full, energetic, and always up to the challenge. So it is important that this is infused inside your organization. So, but of course, it's not easy, right? The cultural organization perspective, right, requires a suitable touch and a lot of patience to reconcile the different mini systems that already exist in our organization. We have a whole research field which is called corporate branding. And that is the main goal for the corporate brand field, right? It's actually enable companies to understand the core culture and values and bring this forward, right? Transforming the culture of the organization as part as the culture of the brand that is seen externally by everybody else. So I am bringing two key papers on corporate branding so you can guys understand better what I'm talking about. This is the corporate brand building process. This paper from Wood is extremely interesting because actually teaches us how we can integrate everything, right? On previous class, you saw the brand identity aspect of this. You explore this in depth. What I'm going to do with you today is first cover the organization identity, the values. We are going to do an activity that helps you to identify them. And then I'm going to give you a real life example, a brand that actually takes a lot of advantage of the consumer identity in respect to the brand. So the corporate branding building process, right, provides, right, an opportunity to understand the values that are related with the organizations, the values that are summarized by the brand that you did last class, and the values that are experienced by consumers. So, organization core values and brand essence. In many cases, values are universal. So, what sets cultures apart is the relative importance, or meaning the ranking of these universal values. What we need to do actually as a manager and trying to infuse it, trying our employees to enact our brand is to identify the set of core values, right, that defines a particular organization. And that is the very interesting aspect that I'm bringing here for you. That's probably the most novel aspect of my class for you today, guys, is that we don't do it this as a manager sitting in our office and deciding what it is, the corporate values of our organization. We need to do this together with our employees. Even if you only have one or two, we need to get together and do, for example, a model of the brand pyramid so we can actually be able to identify what are the most important values for our organization. So this model that I'm going to present you now, right, put forward a way for us to visualize what these core values and brand essence is. Brand essence. So the brand essence enables, right, an internal communication process that encourages staff to from the organization to all put in the same direction, because once your staff collectively develop and understand, right, the brand accents, it's easier for them to enact. I usually, when I teach corporate branding, I usually explain for my students that this model can be done once. But of course, this model for large organizations can be done, for example, in induction. You can, in the induction day, put the group of newcomers to actually try to draw the brand pyramid. And it is really effective, actually, right? So the brand pyramid will help us to identify the core characteristics of the brand, our core values, and reflect the critical components of the brand that are important to consumers. Again, these need to be done together. It's not about the manager sitting in his office, her office, and developing, going through this pyramid. This pyramid is also should be done with two basic rules. It's from the attributes to the top. Well, we start with the easiest aspect to identify the easiest characteristics, and then we go up. And the other thing is that we need to decide no more than three. It can be less than three for each one of the categories. So here is the brand essence pyramid. I will give you guys a time to take a print screen of this or take a note of this before I move you guys for a breakout rooms. Like we are going to do a brand pyramid exercise in breakout rooms. Let's give you a minute so you can take a note of each category you need to identify. Remember, you need to start from the bottom to the top. First, identifying attributes, then functional benefits, emotional rewards, values, and personality traits for your brand. So it's not about cheating. It's not about picking up your brand archetype, right? It's about actually try to understand internally in organization and look externally what your consumers think about your brand. Because we are looking to not the middle of our other model of the globe, we are looking, actually, let's come back here. We are looking actually to this bottom part of our globe and to the top part of our globe. I'm going to actually now put everyone in a breakout room. Breakout room. Do you guys know what to do? Let me give you the brand, of course. The brand we are going to look at is we are going to build up the brand essence pyramid for Heinz. Heinz is one of the most famous brands around the world, but it's particularly found here in UK, right? It's the brands that produce our beloved baked beans. So we all understand Heinz well. So imagine you start working Heinz today and you are in induction and people are telling, well, let's build up this brand essence pyramid together, right? So let's create, let me see the number of parts. I have, okay. Let's create 5 breakout rooms and I'm going to assign you all automatically. So are you guys clear about the activity? Can I move you guys for the breakout room?
I think so, yes.
Yes,
no one's going to speak.
Yeah, no, thank you. So there we are. So it's not a long exercise, right? It's just a quick brainstorm because we have a lot to cover. But it's going to be good if you guys try to actually find 1 or 2 for each attribute. Let me assign you to breakout rooms. Okay. Open all breakout rooms.
which can be said that because, you know, they believe. Yeah.
Welcome back, guys. So I know it was super short. Apologies for that, but I do have just 1 hour to go through this lovely presentation. But you will have the model, so you can use it for in your company in the future. So what do you thought about the exercise? What values were able to identify? Let's start with the attribute.
But in our group, we found we were saying that really the attributes of it we found was the kind of, it was familiar to us. You know, we'd grown up with it, so it was already established, so it was kind of reliable, if you like.
Yes. And did you put it as an attribute?
We did, because it already exists in our life. I think it was an attribute. There was we said about the kind of functional benefits is around kind of consistency as well. So they kind of overlapped a bit.
Yes, they do. Yeah, it's not a problem because it's more like a reflexive exercise. Great. Anyone else want to say anything?
We had things like consistency, ketchup, beans. It's just the product descriptions. Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. That's good. Yeah. What else? What else do you guys have? What about emotional rewards? I'm curious about this.
We had indulgence and nostalgia as emotional rewards for this one.
Nostalgia is good, actually. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I think, as I said previously, yeah, it's a brand that we all grew up with. So it's more, it brings like this notion of nostalgia.
Yeah, true. That's interesting. Yeah.
I think we had comfort, stroke familiarity, almost as a.
Okay. So personality traits, anyone take a chance on it? Core values?
We struggled with that, if I'm honest. That was the one and then we ran out of time. But
Yes, of course. It's not some sort of an exercise that we should do in 5 minutes, right? But the purpose of our workshop today is just actually for provide you guys with tools that you can use in the future. And it's way better that you experience a short period than you don't. So you'll see for yourself the difficult. But yes, we should do this with care and we should do this with calm. But it is actually a good way to integrate, to make, one, understand what our employees actually think about the company as a role, without bringing issues that are not related with, because this is about the brand. It doesn't bring HR issues, administrative problems. So it's something more metaphorical, and it helps integration in a very positive way. So as you can see, this is from a chapter from a book that is listed at the end of the presentation. You can access this. Brunel, for example, has the book. You can just go there to the library and borrow it. But the book has some examples, and I added mine. So just we have a guidance, right? Again, there is no right and wrong here. And of course, this will change over time. It should, because brand culture is something that is alive, right? It's constant change. It's an ongoing process between the two. It is an ongoing process of what the brand as an entity, right? It's the orange, and the cultural process that involves the orange. So why? Let's see. Yes, sorry guys. There we are. So see, familiarity, it's the word doesn't show here, but in a sense, it could be almost a value that the authors identify that they need to nurture. Right, we have earthy as well. This is from me, which is the emotional reward, but I like way more nostalgia, by the way. So reliable comes here, reliable, familiarity, they are more like functional benefits, right? Because it's the perception of the consumer about what the brand has to offer. So the attributes are kind of very basic. It's the first level of the brand. It's almost description what the product and the brand do, right? They do canned food, they have good taste, and they are safe. This is the very basic low level what Heinz does. Then we have the others characteristics that adds up to the core essence of the brand, being reliable, being practical. They have this guilt-free convenience in the book, which is this kind of emotional aspect of it. And in a sense, this is also related with one of your examples about being a sort of indulgence, right? When I go on and indulge myself with a lovely bean on toast or wherever. So, and well, I do believe that it is a brand in terms of personality traits that is caring, that is jovial, and I think that is most importantly, it's a brand that can be classless, and this is a positive aspect, right? Because sometimes if you have a luxury brand, you want class distinction, but if you just have a FMC, fast move goods, you don't want that your brand be sometimes stratified by class, right? These are examples, guys, right? You will develop this in greater depth doing the exercise with your employee. And I guarantee you are going to be extremely surprised, right, by this. Because they do have a perception about the brand that sometimes we don't have. And the other point about the exercise that we actually need to try to understand what the consumers are thinking about. Remember, right? We need to identify the core characteristics that we did, but always looking forward to what the consumers are experiencing about it. Okay. Okay. So
now, a quick question.
Sure.
If I may, just a quick question here.
Please.
Those brand these adjectives here, they are always rather positive in a sense. What if you'd like us to consider the negative aspects of it, or the potential threats to your brand? Is that good to do a similar exercise, but focusing more on negatives? Or is that not important when you build a brand?
No, you're not building a brand here. You understand your brand and you are disseminating the brand core values with your employees. The exercise of positioning should look at the threats, for example, that you see on Porter's matrix. These are the other aspect. This is the middle aspect here that we saw and you did before. However, if you do this exercise and you do come across negative perception, this is a very good opportunity for you to address it, because yes, imagine if you do this exercise and you come across with a value, right, one of the core emotional attributes of your brand being negative, you identify this and you can change this, right? But again, you should change this, but now that's the time that we need to look into what our consumers think, right? Because that's the second building block process, right? Pay attention to your consumers. But again, this is not a positioning model. It is an exercise you should do to your employee to disseminate the brand essence, the core value of your organization across your staff, across your group, so they can all enact your brand's meanings and values.
Right. Thank you.
Sure, excellent question, by the way. I was so focused in answer you, and I seem like give you a very good answer. I also have one question here from Natalie. Natalie, I will answer your question, but when times come, okay? I'm not neglecting you. I will answer this because I want to cover this first so I can answer you. It's gonna be better. So the second building block is the co-created brand culture. Wow, that's a mouthful, right? What means co-created? It means that actually what your consumers do with your brands after they buy it actually matters, and not only matters, but actually influence your brand culture, actually influence your overall brand culture. Sometimes what your consumers do with your brand, it's so powerful that changes your business for real, right? So consumers want a relationship with brands they trust and with whose values they can identify. Because, as I said, brands are meaningful tools consumers are more than happy to work with. So what they do? So they now, right, with social media especially, right, they have a louder voice. Consumers always had voice, and consumers always interacted with other consumers to talk about brands. But the difference in today's society is that through social media, we actually can, it's the megaphone effect, right? We can hear what they are saying. Even if you don't like what they're saying, we can hear, right? So it's clear for us, it's easier for us to actually observe now, right, how they can influence the value systems of our brands, because they do, right? They influence the value systems of our brands by embodying or sometimes rejecting the brand culture. So, and they also add a lot of label, right? Their own label, sometimes in promote your brand for free. When they post it, they are using your brand in the Instagram, they are posting, they are visiting your restaurant or whatever, right? So they add their own label and emotional value to develop this interpersonal relationship. The interpersonal relationship here is the new aspect for you guys, right? Because when we are talking about brand culture, the brand is the meaningful object that actually makes people, brings people together, makes them friends, or makes them experience the same emotion around the brand. So they need to interact and talk about the brand. So to build relationships, we live in a consumer society, and we cannot have any kind of consumption that is not, any type of relationship that is not linked with consumption at any level. COVID just puts this very clear for us, right? So what the marketing activities can do is facilitate the core presence in the communal gathering of the target consumer group. So actually we can promote not our brand to consumers. Promoting our brand to consumers is just doing an advertising. We can actually promote a communal meeting between consumers that just happens to be next to our brand, around our brand, right? It's more about giving the consumers opportunity to interact with each other, and somehow your brand is the facilitator of that interaction. So we have this very good and now extremely famous model, right? And McCracken's model helps us to understand how we can actually do this, right? Because they explain to us that the culture acts to our brains in two ways, right? We have the first level, where shared meanings created through marketing systems and cultural traditions infuses from the culture to the brand. So the advertising, the fashion system isolatedly can infuse our brand with cultural meanings. And I'm talking about the blue ink here. The company that is in the middle, right? When we see in the model consumer goods, is the brand. And they actually look at this and actually influence this up as well. But McCracken's model is a bit outdated. And they actually trickle this down. They transfer the meanings from the cultural world to the consumers. Usually, until recently, marketing literature would say, well, we just transfer the meanings by giving consumers an opportunity to see my advertise, or giving the consumers an opportunity to experience my brand in the store. But actually, McCracken model explains that we can actually segment this in 4 types of personalized co-creation opportunities. So opportunities in which the consumer can actually create a relationship with other consumers, having your brand in the middle point. So this second way of constructing meanings, it's how, the brand can talk, use it, or teach consumers about possession rituals, exchange rituals, grooming rituals, and disinvesting rituals, moving the meaning from the brand down to the consumers. So here's a practical example. I have this research on the brand community, which is called Meliceiras. They are consumers of the brand Melissa. The brand Melissa, at the beginning of the times, at the top left, right, the first advertising, it was all about being very mundane and related with the natural environments of the brand. We have these ladies here, these 5 ladies, they are Brazilian soap opera actresses, and they are using the brand, and they are teaching how to use the brand with socks and light dresses and everything. The brand decided to make a huge change in 2000, right, in the turn of the century, and they decide to become more fashionable. And one of the ways they start to do is bringing advertisers that are more like linked to fashion science. As you can see on the plastic doll here, the shoes the plastic doll is wearing was a shoe someone could buy in the store, but of course the plastic doll is not real. The name of the campaign was Plastic Fantastic. That's when everything starts to change. And then it's evolving from the bottom left, where we have actually the brand introducing co-partnership with fashion designers, changing their identity completely. And the bottom right here, we have the latest image from the brand from Melissa website. They just launched a campaign and they are bringing this image. So we have here an image that shows how Melissa uses advertising in conjunction with the fashion world to trickle down the meaning from a mundane at first to a high fashion brand at the end, and now they are moving forward. We also have clear examples on the branding bringing direct meanings from the fashion systems. They did famous partnerships with Karl Lagerfeld, Vivienne Westwood, and Jason Wood, and this, what they call collab. In this collaboration with fashion designers are very profitable, right? Very, very, very profitable for them, because this allows consumers to become collectors, not only consumers. And they look at you every launch, right? They have 2 collections a year, and these consumers look at for a group of shoes they will buy and they will collect and they will go on and establish a relationship with other consumers about this. So that's Melissa looking up and digesting and bringing new objects and a new brand structure based on the cultural constitutive words. And how consumers understand this. Let's look at each one of the rituals, and you guys are going to understand this, how interesting this is. So this is a possession ritual. So this is way before Instagram, right? I've been researching these ladies for almost 10 years. So this is one's blog. As you can see, it was an image from the blog, and this is how they display the possession. There is a specific way to display this possession. This heart-shaped way of putting the shoes in a heart shape, it was developed by the community of Meliceiras. If you go until today, you will see pictures of the Meliceiras. They develop their meanings. Right? These are meaning they develop, and these are way they develop on how to display the brand. So this became a ritual of possession. It's not just wearing. They do wear, so you can see they display nowadays on social media different ways of wear the shoes, but they also have to create additional rituals of possessions. And one of what I like the most is this one. They take pictures of the shoes in a close up, right? These are actually pictures that are from 10 years ago that they used to post on their blogs, right? And wait a minute, what did you see? We just saw the brand using, co-creating, right, this value with consumers. It is important to them because it's not just about wearing the Melissa and post on Instagram anymore. They have the heart shape. They also post, of course. It used to be blogs, it used to be before MySpace, Orkut, and now it's Instagram, but the ritual remains. And then the brands emulate what they do because they value this way of seeing the brand, because this is the way that they put the brand in their special place, they see in their heart, they see in the community, and they communicate with each other. So they also have a ritual of exchange, so they get together. And was a meeting 10 years ago in one of the consumers' house. Every time they meet, and they do meet on regular basis, once a couple of months, to eat cake and talk about Melissa, how much love they can spend in one brand. And when they do, right, they take this picture. It's the Melissa circle. Every time a group of Melissa they get together, they have to register the moments, this ritual of exchange with the Melissa circle. It happens until today, by the way. This is a recent one, right? This is a timeline for a consumer. This is an Instagram timeline. See, the whole life of this person, it's around the brand. It's absolutely around the brand, the friendships and everything. So if you can see on the middle here, we have at the first line, we have a group of people together, and they are in one of the events the brands promote for them, right? The franchisees now promote events for them. What sort of event? You can just go there and meet other Melisseras. You can just go there and they will have artists drawing on your Melissa, customizing your Melissa, or you can participate on one of the workshops, which means like the brands invite you for a day, pre-launch day of the campaign that you can actually enjoy all the meanings. So it's then actually infusing like the brand pyramid in the consumers. In a sense, they accept, they enjoy, of course they enjoy, they love the brand. But every time you can go on and eventually going to see, because there is a group of Melisseras that are invited because they buy a lot, like they're the premium customers at the store. And you're gonna see, you see today, this is the logo, the red logo of the workshop, and you have the Melissa circle. Even when it's the event is promoted by the brands, their communal ritual developed by them 10 years ago remains. How strong the cultural value about the community it is, right? You can't actually change this. They change social media, Melisseras get in and get out of the group, but the cultural values about the brand and the practices, right? The exchanging ritual, the possession ritual remains. Melissa is so interesting. You can see I'm very excited about it. They have their own cleaning ritual. So they clean the shoes and they record videos about cleaning the shoes. They dispose the collections of Melissa in a particular way, as you see, by color, with white shelves, or some of them also have collections of handbags. I'm talking about Uber consumers here. Some of these consumers, they have more than 400 pairs of Melissa, and they are very influential in the community. The community look to them. They don't look to the Melissa. The community talk to them. The community don't talk with the Melissa because, of course, Melissa is a big brand and cannot talk with consumers. And the disinvesting rituals. The disinvesting rituals are sites created by Melisseras to resell a Melissa because they love Melissa so much, they just don't throw it away. They sell pre-loved to Melissas so they can have a better life after. So consumers create these sites, right? Of course, people are taking advantage of this and making a profit, but it is an emerging aspect that the brands never could ever imagine would foresee. There is a whole business of selling Melissa, selling used. I'm talking about selling used shoes, right? And I did bought one for the sake of research. I bought one in one of these sites. So you see that when we start to look at our consumers, different use of a brand, different rituals, it is emerging. It's 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 emerging. we gain a whole new perspective of our brand can do for them. So we're not going to have time for this, but I have a question for you. What was the last time your company facilitate a consumer engagement? I mean, I'm not talking about invite your customers for doing something with your brand. I'm talking about creating something that consumers, your main consumers, can interact with each other, and just happens to be around the brands. Right? This is the trick. This is where we should progress. This is the type of engagement that actually will bring us this, right? So the brand pyramid is one way to create a synergy, right? It's one way to make the employees enact the corporate vision, right? And also other cultural aspects of the brand, and co-created culture, meaning facilitating the engagement between the consumers, right? It's the other building block that actually can, right, brings a lot of values and may, right, lead to a truly embodied of your brand by the consumers. But this is co-created. Remember, as the example I said about the photo with the Melissa Sarko, the rituals they develop by themselves, they replicate even when they are participating in interaction promoted by the brand. I now have to address Natalie's questions, right? Natalie asked me, the infusion of local culture is hence a challenging for local branding, seeking consistent in assets in different culture. It is challenging, but it's not impossible, Natalie, right? Cultural brand can have an upgrade. And the upgrade of cultural brand is what we call brand icons. Through really understanding the culture of our brand inside our organization and in our consumer mind, we can develop what Douglas Holt says about brand icons. So Douglas Holt's model, it's an evolution of McCracken's model, right? And he brought energy to the theme of culture as a source of brand meaning by shifting from the crash about the cultural content, that what we saw in McCracken, different types of content of cultures enacted by our consumers, enacted by the brands, to and context to a process of question how exactly the culture creates brands. And I have the best example for you guys. You did the brand archetype, right? And one of the brands you did was Dove. It was about innocence, free to be you, to be me. That's very good, right? But when we come back to Douglas Holt and we start to questioning how exactly culture creates brands, we hit the jackpot, right? We can get this consistent that you think about, but we really need to understand the culture around our brand. We really need to understand our blue ink in great step. So Dove Real Beauty. So this is the beginning of the campaign, right? Dove interview consumers qualitatively to understand what was bothering them, not why they are not using Dove or whatever, because actually before the reason why Dove creates the Real Beauty campaign was because the Unilever was reducing their portfolio. They had a portfolio with more than 400 brands, and they want to reduce the portfolio. And to reduce the portfolio, they decided to talk with consumers, like do a qualitative research and understand what are the most beloved brands from Unilever. I mean, a brand with so many important products, which are market leaders, could not foresee that one of the most beloved brands was Dove, because at the time, Dove was just a soap bar. But consumers were very fond of the brand. But consumers were not really in line with all they saw as oppressive representation of women in fashion magazines, Hollywood movies, all the cultural process. Because the women were feeling a lot not only underrepresented, but they feel kind of intimidated to see all the skin beautiful women in television, movies, and so on, and they are normal women. So they did take advantage of the women's sense of not belonging to any brand, not belonging to a beauty culture, to develop the real beauty. And that is, they move beyond the brand culture to transform Dove in an iconic brand. Nowadays, we all know that Dove is an iconic brand. We all know what the real beauty campaign is. We all relate to this. We all like to remember this campaign. It is because it was really, really important. It's because they understood in depth by talking with the consumers what were the key aspects of the culture they could actually genuinely bring it to their brands. In doing this, of course, they still use, this is one of the latest campaigns, and they can use this for many, many years, right? So to answer Natalie, it's not only about having consistency across countries, right? Because the ideal beauty is something that all societies rely on, but it's also managed to have a stronger culture across time, right? So by starting the process of creating brand cultures, right? Paying attention to the building blocks. Hopefully we can get to the point that we, after understanding what our consumers actually see about the culture around our brand, we can actually move from the next level, which is the iconic brands. I think that is it for today. Questions, guys? I imagine you guys have many questions for today. I'm going to leave this one because this is the most important one. I'm sorry I'm running a little bit of time, but I think it's worth it a bit. Any questions?
Can I just check? Are we getting a set of these slides?
Yes, you will.
Super.
You will. You don't get the Melisera's image, right?
That's
because it's from the research. I cannot actually, but the others you're gonna have it. The borders, everything you're gonna have. Just the Melisera image that you're not gonna have it. Any question, guys? Thank you for the comment, Natalie. Natalie said it's really insightful and helpful examples. It is being recorded. I like with the cohort meetings will be available to download. John, I tried to record. Not sure if it worked. If I manage to do it properly, you're gonna have it. I promise. Okay.
It looks as if it is recording.
Yeah, but sometimes I had trouble before and not being able to retrieve the recording. You know what I mean? I will try my best. I'm not denying you. If it is recorded, you're gonna get it. Okay. Any other question? Thank you for participating. It was very lovely to have you guys here. It was a shame that we cannot meet in person, but maybe next year, right? So we can do this in person.
Thanks very much. Really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very much.
I will liaise with Aniru and Sulaina about the recording and presentation, okay? See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.